Good morning. Today is Friday, July 8th, I believe, and we're in Houston, Texas. I'm with Steve Munisteri, long time dear friend, and also former chairman of the Republican Party of Texas. Steve is one of our at-large delegates to the National Convention and is one of the two people from Texas who will serve on the National Convention Rules Committee. So Steve, can you update us on what's anything new developments on the rules? Talk to me for a minute or so about that. Anything happening?
Well, there's a couple different groups that are trying to radically change the rules. And one set wants to take power away from the RNC chairman, and they say to ostensibly give them to the grassroots. But it's really misleading, because what they want to do is not take the power away from the chair and give to the grassroots, because to give the power to the grassroots would mean that you'd have to have some way for the grassroots to actually express their opinion and vote. What they're doing is taking away from the chairman and trying to give it to RNC members. And RNC members may not necessarily be grassroots people, because many of them are appointed by elected officials or very small committees.
Are there specific RNC members who are behind this effort?
It's really promoted by Ken Cuccinelli, the former Attorney General. And I met with him. He's very well intentioned, but he's never been a party chair, and I don't think he has a realistic view on how an organization needs to run. Having been a party chair, I will tell you, you cannot run by committee on a day-to-day basis. And it's usually pretty standard practice, matter of fact, in every state I know of, for a state chairman to appoint the committee chairs in their state. In Texas, not only does the state chairman appoint the committee chairs, but he actually appoints she appoints all the committee members except for one committee. And right now we already have checks and balances, and the checks and balances are that the majority of these committees on the RNC are actually elected from the RNC. So the chair gets to nominate the chair and some of the members, but the RNC always has a majority. So I don't think that that's a good idea.
Tell me, continue, but also what are some of the rules changes this group wants to make?
Well, they want to make it so, number one, the RNC chair doesn't get to appoint anybody. They say they want to limit his ability to administer the budget, apparently without recognition that there's already a budget committee that has to approve. Mm-hmm. So I don't quite know what they're talking about when they're saying that. They're also putting forth rules in addition to how you change the RNC. Oh, one other thing, he's floated the idea of having the RNC chairman elected at the National Convention. But to me, that's problematic, because as somebody that ran for state chairman here against an incumbent, I had a campaign 6 months full-time, literally 20 hours a day, one day off, just to cover one state. The idea that you would have a national contest for national chair, I think leaves you to very, very wealthy people who have a lot of time, and I don't think that's a good idea. In addition to rule changes about how to change the RNC, they also want to do things such as prohibit open primaries. Well, that's problematic for Texas because we have an open primary.
Right.
So if you said a state can't have an open primary and we're going to penalize that state, and the Texas legislature doesn't change our legislature from an open to a closed primary, we could lose most of our delegates. The other thing he wants to do is make it strictly proportional. And we don't have a strictly proportional system in Texas. If you win the congressional district by majority, you get all the districts.
Right.
If you come in first, but not a majority, it's 2-1, but that's still not proportional.
Right.
So I met with Mr. Cuccinelli, and he's very well intentioned, and he's a solid conservative, but I was just telling him his rules packages hurt Texas and package changes, and I'm approaching all this from the standpoint of my number one goal is to make sure the number of delegates from Texas is not cut, because some people want to change the bonus system in addition to that.
Right. So how many states have open primaries?
I don't know the answer to that, but I mean, it's a number of them.
It's not a majority. About 12, 13, I think I've heard.
I'm not positive.
Okay. So yesterday seemed to me to be a change. I'm moving over to Mr. Trump. I saw the Trump campaign in a different light yesterday. In view of his meeting with 200 congressmen, he came out of that reports from the congressman saying, hey, We saw him as a thoughtful man, some depth, some substance to the man, a conservative. We like what we heard. We're invigorated. We like what we heard. And I thought it was a good week going into the convention, away from the convention. That's good timing. And then also everything with James Covey that's happening in the Hillary issue seemed to backfire on Hillary. Even though she seemed to get a free walk, boy, people all over the place are looking at her. And James Covey, while he handled himself very well, did not help Hillary yesterday. Talk about that.
Well, 2 points. First, let's talk about Trump. 12 days from now, we're going to have a nominee. Unless something extraordinary happens that's unforeseen, Donald Trump is going to be the nominee. And I think a lot of people have had a hard time getting their mind around that. But as you're getting close to the convention, I think the reality is setting in that this is going to be our nominee. And do you want our nominee to win, or do you want Hillary Clinton to win? So I think when they gathered 200 congressmen together, and people realize how close we are to the convention, it's just right around the corner,
Right.
that, nothing is going to change. He's going to be the nominee, again, absent something extraordinary. So, isn't it time to finally close ranks and get behind the nominee? And I think that that's what we're beginning to see. The other thing that you touched on, the FBI probe and Hillary, I think that's tied to a bigger feeling
Excuse me, is that the
No,
camera?
that's okay. It's my phone.
It's her
That's
phone.
okay.
Go ahead.
that there is a sense that the Democratic nominee, unless something dramatic happens before that, has some serious problems. And even if she doesn't get indicted or go to jail, the American public, you have to think, remembers that over the last year, that the presumptive nominee of the Democratic Party has consistently said, oh, I did this for convenience because I just wanted to have one device. Oh, I am positive that we never had any classified material. Oh, well, we secured this better than it was done at the State Department.
Right.
Consistently said that. Said her lawyers individually looked at every single email. Well, now it comes out, it's indisputable. The FBI, who she's relying on now to kind of clear her, is saying, yeah, we've cleared you, but she had 3 devices, so that couldn't have been the reason she
At
did.
least 3.
At least 3.
At least 3.
So that whole reason that she gave, I think it's going to remind people of the Benghazi situation where she said, oh, we had the videotape did it, and it turned out it had nothing to do with it. She said before, oh, I want it convenient for one mobile device. It's just a made-up story.
Right.
Because she has to have known that she had more than one
Well,
device.
you are seeing now the consistent pattern of both Clintons who they lie, they make up stories, they're covering their backside continually. And it's on a bigger and bigger stage, and Donald Trump benefits from that.
And they also have now over a 20-year history of this being a pattern.
Yes.
And in my mind, I think also what's going on, not necessarily for younger voters, but for older voters, it's kind of now bringing the deja vu of, this was very common to the Clinton administration. People forget about Travelgate. Not people remember Watergate, but you also had Travelgate. And of course the Monica Lewinsky, where they just come up with these fanciful stories to, as you say, cover their backside.
Mm-hmm.
So for older voters, I think it's bringing it back. Younger voters weren't around when Clinton
Well,
was
it's
here. Now-
educating them.
Yes, it's like,
educating them.
this
Right.
lady is not honest. And when you look at the word cluster on the computers, it always comes up,
Right.
untrustworthy, liar, etc. Boy, this is before the FBI report. You have to think the FBI report is going to solidify the feelings of a lot of Americans, even people that aren't Republicans, that they just are willing to say or do anything to retain power.
Right, correct. So, we see yesterday they released some of the speakers at the convention, and Ted Cruz will have a slot. Do we know what night Ted's going to speak?
I don't know what night, but I thought it was a extremely positive move.
Right.
And I also will say this, I won't get in trouble since I advise him, but I know Chairman Priebus has been working very hard the last few days to bring people together, and I know it was one of his priorities to make sure Ted Cruz was included, and I think that really will go such a long way.
I agree.
To trying to heal.
Any thoughts on who a VP might be? Have you been called? Been offered the job?
Not yet.
Okay.
But
Any thoughts?
yeah, I mean, I have to think. I mean, I really do think it's down to, without any sort of inside information, just listening to people chatter at the office who don't necessarily have inside information. But you just have to think it's coming down to Christie, Pence, and Gingrich. And you know, if I was to bet, and I could be wrong, you might play this in a week, and I must be completely wrong. But if I had a bet, I bet he picks Newt Gingrich.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think too. And do you think he'll announce that before the convention?
I think he'll announce it before the convention, maybe not, but a day or two before the convention. But I think he will. One of the reasons I believe that is Donald Trump has a fantastic sense of the media market and timing.
Yes.
So you've got the FBI story for a few days. You're going to have the convention either the following week anyway. So in my mind, I'm thinking, how do you fill that time between the end of next week and the start of the convention? Mm-hmm. And a way to get himself 2-3 days of publicity going into the convention is to announce the VP choice.
Right. Correct. When are you going to Cleveland? You said you might be going up early.
Well, originally, I have to go up for rules, which has an orientation Wednesday, so I was going to go Tuesday.
Of next week, so 4 or 5 days before.
Right, but I, as we were speaking, literally 10 minutes before, the chairman texted me when I was going to Cleveland, and he's going to this weekend, so I don't think he realized I wasn't going to next week, so I may be asked to come up as early as tomorrow or Sunday.
Okay. And you are a consultant to the convention, to the RNC convention, correct?
Yeah, yes. My role's really changed, and I really kind of serve as an advisor to the chairman when he needs me. Mm-hmm. The original reason why he asked me to be there was it looked like we were going to have a contested convention. And a convention where you don't have a presumptive nominee is much different to plan for. So, for example, now Donald Trump is picking the speakers. If he wasn't the presumptive nominee, that would all fall to the RNC. So there were a lot of different scenarios where the convention was going to be run differently. And the chairman asked me to do it because, as you know, Mary Jane, in Texas, we have a larger convention than the national convention. Ours are 9,000 delegates.
I am so sorry for all these sound effects that are entering the interview, but please continue.
It just shows you that this is a real interview. This isn't, you know. So there were many scenarios that had to be gamed out as to how the convention could be different and how to run it. Mm-hmm. Since that time, it's basically working on some logistic things. Some stuff is very routine, like talking to delegates who won't return their survey to explain what their survey is. But really, in the last week or two, it's just been providing some general advice when asked to the chairman on navigating these issues as we go through the convention.
One last question. Tragic Dallas situation last night where 5 or 6 police officers were killed. This is only going to increase the security concerns in Cleveland. Do you know any knowledge of that? I know there's tremendous. We delegates get emails about all the security that's going to be there. I am sure this is going to increase it.
Well, a couple things. Because it's the presidential nominee, it's actually under the Secret Service's jurisdiction. So they're calling the ultimate shots, and they're approving and game planning that out. If you ask me any agency I would feel the safest with, it would be the Secret Service. And I'm told the number that they had was something like 1,400.
1,600.
Or 1,600. That's a lot of folks, and they're going to have a secure perimeter.
Well, that's like every delegate, every 2.5 delegates has their own Secret Service agent.
And there's going to be security on the buses. There's going to be a security at the hotel.
They're going to sweep the buses 3 times a day and have the dogs come in and sniff the buses 3 times a day.
So what I tell people is, there's never zero risk. When I walk out of here, I can get run over by a bus. I get in my car, I can be in a car accident. They understand the potential for risk, and they're game planning it out as best they can. I'd rather go to an event where it's a known risk and they provide a tremendous amount of security. I feel safer than going to a movie theater where you don't know it's a risk and you've had attacks at movie theaters where there's no security. So I'd rather go to a place where people are aware that they need to make sure that they have security on site.
Steve, thank you very
You're
much for
welcome.
your time. Anything else you'd like to comment on, add?
Well, I would just say this. I know some people Donald Trump is not their first choice. He wasn't my first choice. Or your
Wasn't my
first choice.
first
We went
choice
for Rand
either.
Paul.
We were with Rand Paul.
And I gotta be honest, he wasn't my second choice.
Correct. I didn't vote for him in the March 1 primary.
I didn't either. But at the end of the day, it's about affecting government going in the direction that we want it to go, or at least not going too far away from the direction we want it to go. We know what the Clintons are. And we know that we'll have a very progressive left-wing government. I have to think with Donald Trump as our nominee, with a Republican majority in the House, hopefully one in the Senate, our odds of getting legislation that you and I like are so far greater.
Oh, yes, yes.
So many times people do not have perfect choices. You just have a choice. And our choice is between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. So I would urge everybody to remember the big picture. We're trying to get government to go in a certain direction. We don't want to lose the House. We don't want to lose the Senate. Here in Harris County, we don't want to lose the down ballot and the judges. So we have to get, Republicans have to come out, have to support the ticket. That's the only way we're going to move the country in the direction
And
we want to be.
I think we need to keep remembering there will be, should Trump become the president, there will be so many checks and balances on him from all three branches of government, from his advisors. Now, he might not have the advisors in there that we want, but there will be so many people watching and balancing and checking him that he is so much better than the alternative.
You know, I really believe, if I'm right, and I may not be right, but if Newt Gingrich is the running mate, you know, Newt is so plugged in to Washington and the Republican Party and the conservative movement. I just think he's going to
There
be.
we have some more of these interruptions. My
But-
apologies.
He's going to be hopefully a very sage guide towards what we want to get done.
Thanks again,
You're
Steve,
welcome.
very much. I'll see you in Cleveland.
Yes.
Thanks very much.
Thank you,
More
Mary
to
Jane.
come.
Is that okay for you, Mary Jane?